Coaches play many roles: mentor, philosopher, strategist. In a new book, a Vermont author, lacrosse coach, and UVM alumnus tells a fictional tale of coaching them up for the big game. We're talking coaching, on the field and on the page, with Coach Joshua Walker. Good afternoon, and thanks for stopping by Across the Fence. I'm Keith Silva, in for Amy Finley. Did you have a coach in Little League, high school, or college who made an impact in your life? Once your playing days were past, maybe you were inspired to train in your bat and glove for a whistle and clipboard. Why not both? That's what my guest did. Joshua Walker is a 2017 graduate of UVM, and when he's not serving looks, he's the goalkeepers coach for the St. Michael's women's lacrosse program. Welcome, Joshua.
Thank you so much for having me.
Joshua has a self-published novel appropriately titled The Coach, which chronicles the story of Jason Nash, a fictional stand-in, I think it's safe to say, for Joshua's coaching journey. Joshua, I said serving looks. We talked before. That's a pocket silk.
That is correct. Pocket silk right next to the lapel pin.
Okay, and you're not just dressing up for your appearance on Across the Fence. This is how you coach from the sidelines.
100%. You gotta dress to impress.
Well, I like that idea. So, coaching is enough of a challenge. Why write a book as well?
Well, Keith, ever since I first started coaching, I knew it was something I wanted to do with for the rest of my life. We get this chance to really play a role in these young athletes' lives. Their high school, college, it can be a tricky time. They're trying to figure out who they are, who they want to become. So to play even a small role in that journey, it's incredibly fulfilling. And so once I got this idea to write the book, The Coach, and put in everything I've learned into it, and really hopefully inspire anyone else that picks it up and reads it that, yeah, you can accomplish anything you set your mind to, it was a no-brainer. And
we should give credit where credit's due. Your brother, also an author, inspired you to sort of go through the self-publishing thing.
He did indeed, yes.
You do this as well. So you were an English major at UVM, a creative writing major?
I was a mechanical engineering major, Keith. If you can believe that, I got the degree to prove it.
Okay. So were you always interested in writing? Did you like telling stories?
I've always had, I think, a creative and artistic mind. So yeah, it's always been something to be able to create any type of art, whether it's a book, a script, or a piece of art in general. Yeah, it's something I've always been passionate about.
Well, thank you for including script in there. Yes, script is definitely an art. Okay, Coach Walker, tell us about The Coach. What's the book about?
Well, The Coach is, you guessed it, it's about a coach.
Okay.
It's about Jason Nash. We first meet him. He's a boys lacrosse coach, loves what he does, loves his team, but's looking for a change. He wants to take the next step, but he's not sure how to do it. And then he gets this opportunity to go be an assistant coach for a women's lacrosse program at the college level in Pennsylvania. A lot of change, and it's a bit scary at first for him. He's really just feeling a bit insecure. He's got to move to a new place. There's new challenges, and he's just not sure how he feels, but he ends up taking the job, and the book follows his journey with this team throughout the first season with the program. It's the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, and anyone in coaching, especially at the college level, knows that there are mountaintop highs and valley lows, and in the end, it's an entertaining and emotional story. But I think the book really, while lacrosse pushes the story forward, it's about human connection. It's about taking risks, being vulnerable, and really accepting growth as the positive thing that it can be in our lives.
Okay, there's a lot of self-help books out there. Why didn't you just publish a book about coaching? Why this, subterfuge of fiction?
Well, the idea is, you want to make a compelling story that really grips the readers. And so going the fiction route, you get this, you can over-dramatize a little bit, you can pump in some things you're coming up with, but also from your own personal experience. I have almost 10 years in this field now, and so by me being able to pump that experience in, I think it definitely added to the real factor while also creating a fictionally compelling story.
So write what you know. That's a very popular fictional old saw to pull out there. How do you make it realistic without becoming personal? You don't want players that you've coached in the past be like, hey, Tom sounds an awful lot like me, or Sarah sounds an awful lot like me.
Well, that is the challenge, because for a book to compel readers and to engage them, it has to feel real, and to feel real, you have to make it a bit personal. I made sure that all the characters in the book, they're not based off real people, though I did admittedly use some names of past players, and I let them know, it's just an homage to the team and to players that I've coached and loved coaching. The main character, however, is loosely based on me. He follows the same path. He has a similar journey, Coach is the same way, wears suits just like I do. And he shares also the same, maybe a little anxiety when he first took over coaching. And so in the end, I kind of steered into that personal side just on my own side, because while it was interesting to talk about that vulnerable side of my life that really only my players have seen,
Sure.
it's gotten a lot of great reviews from friends and family that have read it, so I'm glad I did it. And I do think it feels like a more realistic story since I did.
Easter eggs, I think they call that.
Yes,
Easter eggs.
exactly.
Easter eggs. One of the things I think is interesting, how did you start coaching? You started at UVM, right?
Correct, yeah. I went to UVM in my senior year. There was this opportunity for the women's club lacrosse coach, or women's club lacrosse team needed a head coach. I knew one of the players, and she was like, yeah, just apply. And so I did, and I mean, it was as simple as that. One interview, and I was off to the races.
One of the factors in your book that you talk about is Jason in the novel has a mentor. And it sounds from your experience that every coach needs a mentor, as you've spoken about the book, very personal to you. So why does a coach need a coach?
Well, listen, coaches are supposed to have all the answers. That's just something that we're mentors, we're leaders. People come to us, they expect us to know what to do. But we're also human beings. You know, we experience personal lives with stress and anxiety like everyone. We have the long days, the early mornings, late nights. And we also, I think a lot of people don't discuss that we never stop thinking about our players because we want their well-being to be, strong. And so all of that can bubble up into a fairly chaotic situation if you don't find a way to express it, because it can be mentally and physically taxing on the body. So if you don't have a mentor or someone to talk to, really just to get these feelings out, it can end in a pretty disastrous manner. And no spoilers from the book, but Jason has a few maybe issues he needs to resolve.
You talked about the importance of, in the book, the importance of the mental game as well as the physical game, the actual X's and O's, so to speak. Is that mental game something that you have to impart to your players? Is that something that, you have to sort of teach them, I guess?
Yeah, I think so. Everyone has a different level of confidence when they come into a certain sport. Mm-hmm. And so you do really have to coach them at an individual level. You can't just show up, blow a whistle, and then leave. You have to get to know your players. I've always felt on a fundamental level, you get to know what makes them tick, and then you can coach them in that best manner in a more individual way for each one.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've heard a lot about, and I'm sure it happens in sports all the time, imposter syndrome, right? Is that feeling of, I'm not good enough to be doing this, somebody else is better than me, and I'm sure in coaching that happens all the time.
It really does, yeah, but it's all about just making sure every second that you're making them know that not only do you believe in them, but they should believe in themselves as well.
So 2 important tenets of coaching, leadership and motivation. You just said that as a coach, you think individualized, each player has a different version of a coach. What is that your style?
Yeah, 100%. I like to get to know my players at a very personal level. I like to form bonds and form relationships because, like you said, not everyone responds to screaming, not everyone responds to, the more personal level, but you got to get to know how each person will react so you can coach them on that fundamental level.
As a recovering English major, I was thinking about this book and thinking like, oh, there's you got to write a speech in here, right? You've got to put a speech in here. Motivation's such a big part of coaching. Did you just sort of crib your notes and be like, oh, this speech I gave to the UVM women's lacrosse team, like I motivated them. I'll just put this one in the book, and there we'll go.
Well, that's the thing. When it came to, there are a few speeches in the book, and people may not believe this, but these are not speeches I just came up with for the book. If I could poll my Mount Mansfield high school team I coached, they would confirm and validate. These are speeches I've given on the sideline, not only spoken, but screamed at the top of my lungs till my vocal cords were raw. And it was another fun thing I could bring in from my own journey into the story.
I think, in the height of NFL season, we hear and see now locker room speeches, and it really is kind of like Hollywood. Like they didn't go too far removed. So you're in good company there. You played sports, obviously, in high school and college. What kind of player were you? I
was a good player, and I'm not going to be modest about that. I was a confident player, but I also, I had great coaches as well. I'll shout them out right now: Brian Hamm and Bucky Brandt. They were incredible mentors to me.
At MMU.
At MMU, yes, they were my specific coaches there, and I think they I like to motivate in a very positive way. I think negativity can be toxic. It can spread throughout a team, and you don't want to kick a player while they're down. That's just one more person telling them they're not good enough. And at the end of the day, everyone I've ever coached has been capable of something, and so they were the ones who taught me how to be that motivating and positive guy.
Were you coach? Sounds like you were coachable. Did you respond to that kind of motivation?
That attaboy motivation, that's what I loved. If I did something that I thought I did well, like a great shot or a cool dodge, and then a coach came up and said, "Hey, that was really good, Josh." I'm like, really? Okay, let's keep going. Yeah. And so, I definitely responded well to that.
We were talking before we started taping, and you said overhand throws?
Overhand shots. That's the ones you got to
shots.
take. They're harder to track. They bounce. It's the easiest way to score.
But they don't look as good as underhand shots.
Underhand looks cooler, yes. So it's you gotta strike that balance.
You got to strike that balance. On your website, you have a quote from basketball coaching legend John Wooden. Do you have any other coaches besides the ones that you had yourself that inspired you,
I do.
Real life?
It's funny. There's a quote in the book, again, something I didn't pull out of thin air. I had a player's parent tell me this, but they said, "You remind me of Dan Campbell mixed with Ted Lasso." And I thought that's very strange, That's a fictional soccer coach and a real-life NFL coach,
Right.
But I did love it. Because, you watch Dan Campbell in the locker room, he is loud, motivating, he cares about his team. And, if you look it up on YouTube, you're going to want to drive to Detroit and storm the field with the Lions.
Right,
and then you got Ted Lasso. Yes, writers write for him, but he's a one-on-one, fundamental, compassionate, empathetic coach. He coaches on that one-on-one level, and he cares about his players. And that's really the thing that I think both of those coaches and every coach should share, is that you have to care about your players and your team.
Well, this should motivate you. Good job, Josh. Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank
you very much. I enjoyed speaking with you. The book is The Coach. It's available where you buy books, and we always encourage you to ask your local librarian. And it's also on Josh's website, CoachJoshWalker.com. My thanks to the team behind the scenes here at WSEGS, all of whom are mentors, motivators, and coaches for me, and they help make our visits here possible. I'm Keith Silva. This is Across the Fence. Thanks for being part of our family.